No one likes to think that they might be treading water in their search for truth, but there are many who mistake movement for progress, and I was once in the very same position. I believed I was making progress because I was asking questions and investigating other views. Indeed, this is what many theists will say when objecting to accusations of having blind faith, and yet this exposes a dangerous delusion in the way that a lot of us think. I had asked questions and looked at alternate ideas, but it was all filtered through a Christian perspective. I was constantly on my guard mentally, apprehensively considering everything with the primary concern, how does this relate to what I believe? To put it another way, I did not truly have eyes to see or ears to hear anything that would challenge my beliefs. Today I find myself fearlessly open to being wrong. I have no vested interest in denying real evidence for any God if such evidence is ever revealed. For a believer, there is a strong interest in only being skeptical to a point, so that belief can still be maintained. Apologetics pretends that questioning is encouraged in matters of faith, yet there is just one conclusion that is tolerable. This is seen even in the name of apologetics, which is about having a defense, not conducting an honest investigation of both sides. To be fully open to being wrong means being willing to abandon your position if it is demonstrated to be wrong. Yet many Christians are told by their Bibles, pastors, and fellow believers that rejecting faith is one of the most foolish things a person can do. And then there is the chance of going to hell if it turns out you were right the first time. The possibility of being wrong is not taken so seriously by a lot of Christians, perhaps indicated by the popularity of Pascal's wager. As an atheist, the worst that will happen if I'm wrong and have to change my beliefs is that some of my friends won't understand my decision. I don't believe theists are bad people, or that losing my atheism would be immoral, unwise, or so forth. I am far more concerned with believing what is true than with towing any party line. This has been my thinking since the time I deconverted, and it has led me to change some of my views along the way. After I came out atheist to my parents, church, and youth group, the last thing I wanted to do was announce it to anyone else. I avoided the subject of religion when I could, and I figured that I would keep things to myself. When I later read the God Delusion, God is Not Great, and Letter to a Christian Nation, I felt like my opinions had already been spoken for. Nearly 2 years would pass before I would start putting my views up online. A number of things motivated this decision to be more outspoken. I began to think of things that were not being covered by the new atheists. I started noticing more of religion's harmful influence in my community, with bumper stickers being torn off my car, students being bullied for religious reasons, and the State Board of Education attacking science. I also stopped buying into the lie that says conversations between opinionated people never get anywhere, as I am living proof that they can and do influence some of us to change our thinking. But perhaps most importantly, writing articles and making videos gives me an opportunity to learn new things, to flesh out thoughts in my mind, and to participate in the marketplace of ideas, which are all ways of holding my views up to scrutiny so that I might do my best to keep my eyes on the road in my search for truth. People who keep their opinions locked up deep inside, where they are untouchable, are the ones who never get anywhere, not those who seek an open forum of discussion. For this reason, I actually like argumentative Christians, more than the ones who shy away at the first sign of disagreement. I am not talking about close-minded proselytizing, but even a heated debate where two people still listen to each other is more respectful and mature than shutting down dialogue to protect your cherished opinions. Making your thoughts available is not the same thing as preaching either. It never ceases to amaze me how some believers equate writing articles, making YouTube videos, and writing books with going door to door, standing on street corners, doing missionary work, and other forms of preaching. If putting opinions up for discussion is preaching, then do sports commentators preach? Is it preaching when we express music preferences? When a commonly religious word is redefined to apply to just about every non-religious activity, I think it's pretty obvious that the word is being used carelessly. My second major change of mind had to do with the concept of faith. After deconverting, I came to view fundamentalism as the problem, not religion in general. A difference of blind faith versus not-so-blind faith, I thought. As my first publication for an atheist magazine, I wrote Faith in the Atheist for the third and fourth quarter 2008 issue of Secular Nation, in which I phrased the distinction as one of contingent versus non-contingent faith. Contingent faith, I argued, is based on reason and evidence, while non-contingent faith, also known as religious faith, is not. Atheists have contingent faith, I stated, since we may not be 100% certain of some things, like the sun rising each day, but we may be 99% sure based on experience, reason, and evidence. I now consider these notions of contingent and non-contingent faith to be superfluous. Faith, as it is used in the Bible and has been understood for many centuries, is accepting something as true in spite of any evidence or reason. Faith, by definition, is blind. Today we interchange concepts like trust and belief with faith, but these are not synonyms. Trust is dependent on reason and evidence, and it can be earned or lost on such a basis. Belief is a psychological state in which we hold something to be true, and again, this may be based on evidence and reason. Faith, however, is prized for its own sake, and within religion a loss of faith cannot be justified as a loss of trust might, pointing to the fact that faith defies reason and evidence. Atheists may trust or believe that the sun will rise tomorrow, but because we can base these things on evidence and reason, we do not have faith in them. Understood in this light, it becomes clear that faith is the irrational problem at the heart of fundamentalism. So-called extremists are simply operating by the real meaning of faith, putting the alleged word of their God above all disconfirming evidence. Even apologists like William Lane Craig, who claim that faith can be based on reason and evidence, have plainly stated that they would maintain faith even if they were proven to be wrong. It is likely that those theists who do not hold fundamentalist views are also those equating faith with trust and belief, and while I can't say that their view isn't preferable to me, I don't think reinterpreting faith in this way has been particularly effective in reducing extremism or accomplishing anything else. Realizing the irrationality of faith also resulted in changes to many of my political views. I had already jettisoned several of the bigoted views I formerly held, like opposing gay marriage, but there were still some fairly conservative issues I had yet to recognize as faith-based positions. Once I looked into the science of prenatal development and familiarized myself with the arguments in the abortion debate, I became pro-choice. I believe that the abortion debate centers around whether or not a presentient organism ought to be allowed to develop and be born without interference. Considering that moral crusades have not arisen when we terminate the lives of non-sentient organisms, like bacteria or fungi, I do not see how anything but an article of faith can be involved in an argument to favor the maturation of a non-thinking, non-feeling fetus. Where is the harm, especially when abortion will save the life of a sentient woman? Another shift in my political opinions was to abandon my faith in free market economics. While I still believe that there are some areas where free market policy can be effectively applied, I do not believe that letting the market decide is the answer to all economic woes, nor do I support complete deregulation of any industry. Activism over certain issues was another way my political views have changed. Initially, I did not want to be one of those atheists to protest under God and the pledge, "In God we trust" on money, or other things I saw as trivial concerns. Even now, this is still not a major focus for me, but after encountering numerous ministers and believers who have used these phrases to alienate atheists as un-American, I started to appreciate upholding the truth that such sentiments are not original, nor are they constitutional. Socializing with other atheists was also not something I found to be all that appealing at first. The joke is often made that it's like church for atheists. However, the big difference between an atheist group and a church service is that atheists don't go sit and listen to one so-called authority do their thinking for them. There is actually open discussion, which a lot of the time doesn't even involve religion. An atheist group is no different from any other social group that meets over their common affinity for something. Although I'd never surround myself exclusively with atheists, don't we all want friends that share some things in common with us? The last and most recent change of mind I have had since becoming an atheist is regarding the historicity of Jesus. Like any good skeptic, when I began to seriously evaluate the claims of Christianity, I decided to start from scratch, which meant questioning if the person of Jesus had ever existed at all. In my years of studying apologetics, the weak extra-biblical accounts which I address in my series, Jesus Has Left the Building, were all I came across. It seems strange indeed that a character of such significance as portrayed in the Gospels would have very sparse mention in the historical record of his time. Yet after reading James the Brother of Jesus by Robert Eisenman, I now think a historical Jesus did exist. Interestingly, I had not found evidence for this Jesus because I had been looking in the wrong place. The evidence for Jesus' brother James that is presented by Eisenman is staggering to say the least, and it is reasonable to infer that whatever James was, Jesus probably was too. I also came to understand why apologists have not jumped to cite Eisenman's book in their case for Jesus, as it presents a radically different picture of both James and Jesus from the depiction of them that is found in the Bible. The relative silence of the historical record on Jesus is additionally answered by the likelihood that James actually overshadowed his brother in popularity. James and Jesus, I believe, were apocalyptic prophets, firm opponents of Roman rule, and fanatically pious in their Jewish beliefs. In my exodus from faith, I have confronted Pharaoh, parted and walked across the sea, and left the bondage of Egypt far behind. I have journeyed through the wilderness and entered into a covenant, but I have not yet reached the promised land. Though perhaps that is the secret of it all. The promised land is not a place, it is a process of continually striving to understand and perpetually seeking out truth. It is a state of mind that deals with reality on its own terms and recognizes that truth speaks for itself through the mediums of reason and evidence. To be in the promised land is to keep searching.